chill starting yesterday morning. I mean, we got into the 30s for many of us. We even saw some places get into the 20s like Superior and into northern Minnesota. But this morning, quite a lot chillier. We're seeing a lot of us well into the 20s, lower half in the 20s. In fact, even some upper teens in some spots as well. And the reason I kind of been talking to through the week is because we had this high pressure system that's sitting over the Northland this morning. And that is the catalyst for these chilly temperatures. We're going to kind of discuss why. What we're going to do is compare it between a case where we have a low pressure to what we're seeing now here in the Northland is a high pressure. So let's now switch us over tonight and focus on that low pressure system, because when you have a low pressure, well, you have an unstable atmosphere, and so you're going to see some clouds develop. So usually under a low pressure system, we usually have a decent amount of cloud cover. Now, when you have the Earth cooling, and it does this through long wave radiation escaping the Earth, it gets absorbed by these clouds. And so the clouds absorb this radiation, and it will re-emit some of it back in space, but some of it goes back to the surface. So it acts almost like a blanket, keeping the surface a little bit more on the mild side, as not all of that radiation can escape into space. But when you have a high pressure system, perfectly clear skies like we do this morning and overnight, a lot of that radiation escapes into space, so we get quite a bit of cooling here at the surface like we're seeing this morning. And there's also another case too to be said about that low pressure versus high pressure system, because under a low pressure system, especially a strong one, have some pretty good winds, and actually the warmer temperatures are just above the surface. So as you get closer to the surface, especially on clear nights, that's where the cooler air is. But when you have winds, you can really mix down that warm air to the surface, helping with some of those warmer conditions or more mild conditions under a low pressure system overnight. While when you have a high pressure system, that cold air just builds. You have a stable atmosphere that's going to prevent that mixing. So a couple of reasons why under high pressure system you get pretty cool temperatures. But you do notice something else this morning, even in the same morning like this morning. This is from 4:30 this morning. Look at this. One station is at 36 degrees, but one that's relatively close and even closer by the lake, 31 degrees here. And the reason has to do with cold pools. Now, we're going to use a pretty extreme example. We're going to use mountains, because this is a good way of visualizing this. So you have these mountains, and we're overnight just cooling, but the mountain peaks are going to see more efficient cooling than down in the low-lying areas like valleys. So what that causes, cold air is more dense. This cold air is going to sink right on down here into the valleys down, and then we get what we call a cold pool developing. And you can see this here in the Northland too. Even though we don't have as big mountains like the Rockies, we can see elevation changes of hundreds, if not a few thousand feet. So even on mild slopes like this, there's still more efficient cooling that allows that cold air to seep on down into those low-lying areas. So if you look at here, we're now going to show you the elevation, because look, this is at 1,200 feet. Even though by the lake, it's technically a low-lying area relative to this station at 1,400 feet, 200 feet higher up. And that's enough for there to be a pretty significant change in temperatures overall, thanks to that cold pooling effect. And now as we start to move forward here, if the slide hopefully is locked up, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like I've had an issue. There it goes. Now, we can see here, we're looking at by Lake Superior. This is from this morning as well at 6:30. You do notice that, look at that, 25 degrees. Even though Bong Airport is closer to the lake, it is low-lying. So that's why it's cooler than even on the hill, where we're seeing it being a little bit more warmer.